Okay, so Rayim Tov on this Canadian secular holiday. And I'm with my friend Shlomo here.
Live today.
And today is the 5th of Cheshvan. We have another person who's joining us.
Steve from.
Yes. Okay, we're continuing in Eshpoich Lafon of Sichi. We're on page Reish Mem Beis, in the middle of a very, very important chapter dealing with Yishuv Hadas that brings you to Mishpat. And we ended off of discussing how important the self-judgment must be, that you must be the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the judge, and the person who's accused all at one. And you have to daven to succeed in this. And if you really daven and you really are giving it all you can, Hashem gives you, so to speak, an angel who helps you merit this. So now we continue with this. This is what we should be praying for when we're involved in this. So we continue with the words, and this itself is what you have to increase in your prayers, such as Rabbeinu Shalom, Master Universe, Psach Einai V'libi B'kdei She'eda Ma'ani Tzarich L'taken, open up my eyes and heart so I will know what I need to fix. Shelo Arameh Es Atzmi, I shall not trick myself. That I should understand what the implications of my actions are about, and how I can fix them. Continuing with his tefillah, because before a person really engages in an honest judgment, he's confused. He really doesn't know where he is in the world. He has no presence of mind. So that's the tefillah. Now, end the quote. The author continues. A person does not know and understand the situation he's in. He can't pray. To pour his heart and tears before Hashem. Till he has presence of mind and his words are clear to him. Then he can ask for mercy from Hashem to forgive him and bring him close to service. Rabbi Nosson adds in his Sefer Likutei Halachos, sometimes a person sees it's not enough the words in which he's judging himself. And therefore, he may figure a new judgment for himself. He says the words aren't enough. What will he do? He'll start to self-flagellate. He'll inflict pain upon himself for what he did. And therefore, when there's a judgment below, there's no judgment above. So what he's saying is klomar, which means to say, hadin v'mishpat, who the judgment is, sheitel esa knas, he should have some kind of punitive measure. Or she should accept something that will obligate himself. Now, this was going back in the days of Rabbi Nosson, going way back. Certainly not all that's going to apply now. Therefore, the whole idea of fasting and self-flagellation is not appropriate for all people. And even someone who can do it, you should be careful with the punitive measures and the afflictions that he accepts upon himself. He shouldn't fall into depression, God forbid. Okay, in other words, not everybody's up to, well, if I don't do this, I deserve a punishment. I'll make sure to do it. So that's not for everybody. Yeah.
But again, you always read, fear comes first. The fear of God, fear of Hashem comes first.
Yeah, fear of Hashem, but to start inflicting punishment upon yourself.
No, but not the punishment, the thought. And then he says, oh, I'll do this. Let's.
Yeah, but so then what's going to hold you to it? What's going to hold you to it? So he says, What is something that's equal to everybody? Everybody can do is he has to accept upon himself something, action he will accept, resolve for himself to a change or some kind of protective measure against certain things in order to separate himself from evil. Okay, in other words, don't punish yourself, but just say, okay, now I accept upon myself, since I see that I'm not able to control myself in this area, I'm going to accept upon myself some type of protective measure that will keep me away from the trouble instead of punishing yourself. You don't have to roll in snow for this. Say, you know what? For example, guy says, you know what? I see that I was looking at the internet and I was working, all of a sudden in my head, something came up and I went into a place or I shouldn't have gone to, or I spent a lot of time wasting. So you know what I'm going to do? As a punishment, I won't go on the internet for a week. I resolve not to go on the internet for, that might be too much. Maybe we'll do one day besides Shabbos. In other words, you accept upon myself certain things I'm not going to do. That is much better thing to do. Yeah.
He's saying if you're not able to say it verbally, then
if you're not allowed, if you're not able to
do the tshuva verbally, and then only
you're trying and you're failing.
You're failing.
Okay, so now what do?
Then you get something.
You have to see your situation, right? So you gotta accept yourself. What am I gonna do that's gonna stop me from doing this bad behavior? Or what am I gonna do that will encourage me to do the good behavior? You have to accept what is the new game plan that I will do. Okay, so that's what he's saying. But there's one thing is clear and has to be. The judgment must bring this person to a conclusion. We have to come to a conclusion, which is shanos, to change, to change your ways. That's what it has to do. You can't end it off with, oh yeah, it's a big problem. Yeah, Hashem, I have a big problem and I need your help. Shkoyach, good. What are you going to do? I don't know. That's not good enough. You have to judge yourself and render a judgment. The judge says, and therefore, because you did this, you spend a month in jail. Okay, we're not putting you in jail for a month. There's got to be a maskana. So what's the maskana? Well, let's say, for example, you notice, when I really get in trouble on the internet, it's late at night. So take a maskana. When I come home from Mariv, I do not turn on the computer, period. That's the maskana. For nothing. You go home. Let's say simpler. You're eating too much. It's not good either. Why? Because when you eat too much, you don't feel good. You can't learn. You can't this. So you say, like, maskana. When I come home from Mariv, I don't go into the kitchen, period. That's the conclusion. Okay, then what happens? 3 days later, you go into the kitchen and you pig out on Hermes cake.
At least 3 days.
So now what do you got to go back and say, you know what? I didn't live up to what I promised I did. So what am I going to do about that? So you have to come up with stronger measures. Okay. You have to, whatever that doesn't inflict pain, but it does work and make it happen. Okay. That's what you have to come out. Now he goes back to the original interpretation, which he said, I believe we left on Friday. V'sam derech. How did we explain the word? Perish, lasim derech hadasha, to place a new path. Let's say you have to leave the path of evil to another path. The idea of a judgment is not like a repair. The judgment is the tool that thereby you can't change. Lazov is derech harasha es hargem l'rayim, to leave the bad path, the things, the evil tendencies you're used to. And return to Hashem. This is the main repair of judgment, as Hashem in Yeshaya says. Halo, ze som efkareu. No, this fasting I chose. Pasach chatzuvos resha, to unlock the fetters of evil. Hater agudas mota, and to untie the cords of the yoke. So what does that mean? So Gemara and Tainus explains. Times and so on. What's the main point of a fast day? It's when you tell yourself difficult words until everybody searches out his ways. To judge and change his ways. You not take eskolak shorim to remove all the bonds, all the fetters that you're tied up as a rasha that are hidden inside, and to open them up. That's the main type of mishpah. So you have to search till you come to the point of truth. To do a correct judgment for you. And don't look for answers that cover up the truth. Okay, moving on to Reish, Mem, doubt. When you reach a level, as the pasuk says, by me, my master is the iniquity. Then there's hope that he understands that he needs to change. Lishano says another to change a certain behavior. To have a firm resolution that he will leave a certain type of behavior that he has done until now. To that, you have to really increase your prayers and supplications. First, you have to pour your heart in prayer. You merit to understand and place your heart for your deficiencies and sins that you have, to find them, to understand them. This is what's wrong. And then to find the path. You daven again now. So how am I going to get out of it? You have to daven for two things. You got to daven, let me find the problem, the real problem, not the phony problem. And if I found the problem, you pray, well, how am I going to fix it? And then, third thing, you have to continue to pray so that you can fulfill the new resolution. You're able to maintain the new path. Because the main tshuva is to start new on a new path. So it's three things you daven. This is all part of the Hisbodedus. Remember, we're not starting Hisbodedus gloom and doom. Don't forget, we start with praising Hashem. Hashem, you're the best, and give lots of examples. And even though now maybe things aren't so good, but I see so many good things in my life. Okay, now for all those good things in my life, I've noticed there's some things I don't think are proper. Now, Hashem, help me that I'm able to analyze this bad behavior properly, that I get to the root. What is the real problem? And now you start asking your questions. So you be the prosecutor, defense attorney, you go through all that we talked about. And then you pray and say, okay, now I have to make a judgment. Help me understand what is the root of my problem. Good. You got the root of the problem? Fine. Now you daven. Okay, what should the judgment be? What is the resolution supposed to be? Hashem, please help me come up with the correct resolution to the problem. What's going to really solve the problem? Okay, so you come up with that resolution. And you say, thank you, Hashem, for giving me the resolution. Now, Hashem, I'm davening that as I leave this Hisbodedus, I want to be able to, please help me that I keep the resolution properly. Okay, that's a proper Hisbodedus. As he writes from the Likutei Maran, don't forget Within all the judgment, you can't conceal the good virtues, because you don't mention the good, then it's not an honest evaluation either. You certainly can't make a comparison between unintentional and intentional, and certainly you can't compare accidental to unintentional. In other words, you got to say, okay, I keep doing this behavior. So you say, okay, but I really have a little bit of excuse because I'm lonely and I don't have friends and this and that. And okay, that mitigates the amount of punishment you should get, but it doesn't make a difference. You got to change it. Still got to change it. Now, what we're doing is you don't want to make yourself feel like you're a terrible monster. So, well, this is part of me because that's the way I was raised. And that could be. And that's a little bit of a defense. In my home, my father ruled with an iron fist, and that's how I learned it. Okay, so I'm not so guilty that I also rule with an iron fist, but it's still wrong. You see, and it doesn't excuse the behavior. So it's not going to change to the final decision that we have to make in terms of, so what's the judgment going to be? Even though we look, there's two things we're looking at. We're looking at the sin itself, the wickedness. So there could be truly some good points, mitigating circumstances. You're not as bad as the behavior would indicate. That has nothing to do with the fact you got to change it, though. You could have two people. One guy on his own came up with this evil behavior, and he's 100% responsible for it. Another guy, he was influenced by others. He's 50% responsible. So there is a difference in terms of how evil what he has done. But in both circumstances, you still need an action plan equally. That's the point he's saying. The point of judgment is tied to the part of tshuva that's done during these Hisbodedus. Tshuva is not just regret. Of course, there has to be regret, but that's not it. It's not far enough. The main part of tshuva is what you resolve for the future. Start from now on a new path, which you cannot do with a true judgment. Now, of course, this leads to the next point.
No.
What?
You can't do it without a true judgment.
Can't do it without what?
A true judgment.
Of course, and that's what the person has to be, that true judge, which is not easy. Now he refers back to one of the stories of Rabbi Nachman, and you got to be fluent with the stories to know what he's talking about. He tells in one of his stories the story of the lame person. It's a whole thing how the lame person was able to find a way. He went to this magical forest and got magical dust, and he was no longer lame. Okay. And now that he comes up with this magical powder, so to speak, this dust, he figures he's going to try to do some interesting activities. That the lame person, who now is not lame anymore, he mixed some of this dust. There's different dust. And if you walk on the dust, it will do certain things to you. If you walk on the dust, it'll make you a tzaddik. And there's and also if you walk on a different dust, it'll make you crazy. So he had two dusts, and he found this forest, all these dusts. The dust that made him that he could walk. And when he's there, he finds all these other kinds of dusts. So he says, let's make an experiment. So what do you have? You have people who are robbers. Okay. So he says he mixed the powders. He mixed the dust of the tzaddikim with the dust of the crazy people to make a dust that makes you a crazy tzaddik. Okay. Now, what happened? So he puts it out. He knew the place where the robbers were going. So he put some of this powder out to see what's going to happen. He watches from the tree. So these robbers who tread on this dust, they became tzaddikim mishugoyim, crazy tzaddikim. What does that mean, crazy tzaddikim? You're a tzaddik, but crazy. So what do? Everybody said that the other guy is guilty. Now that they become tzaddikim, they realize we've been criminals all our lives. You realize what we do? We're criminals. So that makes them a tzaddik, but I'm a shugan a tzaddik. So I say, and it's your fault.
Oh, the other robber.
That I'm wrong. Everyone's saying, I'm wrong. But you're a meshugan a tzaddik. But you're the one at fault. Everybody made the other guy accuse the other guy. You caused me to sin. And what happened? Hargo said they killed each other. Why did he do that? Because I forgot to tell you that when he was lame, in the story, he had a driver take him to the fair. So the robbers came and the driver ran away and left the guy who was lame and couldn't move with all his money. So the robbers came and took his money and beat him up. So he wanted to find a way to get him back. So he found the powder to make himself walk. And then he said, I'm going to get him back now. And he puts this powder, so now they kill each other. But there's still one more person we have to deal with, and the head of the gang. The head of the gang doesn't go out first. See, what the gang leader sends out his thugs. So they look. And then after a while, he sees nobody comes back. And then he sends some others, and he sees they're all dead. And then they don't come back either because they step on the same powder. You follow what's going on over here. So now there's nobody left. The gang leader has to come. But before the gang leader comes, the lame guy makes a different powder. Then the lame person cleared out that powder. Now he only left the powder of tzaddik. Now came the head of the mafia comes, and he's stepping right on the tzaddik dust, but pure tzaddik. And he's early tshuva. He does a complete tshuva. He starts crying out, "Mi yitain li derech tshuva? Who can give me a way of tshuva?" He honestly wants to have tshuva. Then what happens? The lame guy jumps out. He says, "I will help you. First, start by giving back all the money you stole from it." Okay. So there's much depth to these stories, but the point where you want to use over here is what's the difference between a real tzaddik and a crazy tzaddik? That's the point we're trying to make. And this is where you have to know the difference when you're making Hisbodedus. Hisbodedus is this powder, but you got to be careful what kind of powder you're treading on. Are you treading on the powder to make you a tzaddik, or powder of a crazy tzaddik? Havona pshutahi. What's the simple understanding? He says the truth of the matter is there are people in life who are real tzaddikim, where they really have a correct presence of mind, and other tzaddikim that are crazy. Rav Levi Yitzchak Bender made a good intuition into understanding this. And he says, this is the difference. The difference between a true tzaddik who has a straight mind, between the crazy tzaddikim, when a crazy tzaddik has an arousal for tshuva, so what does a crazy tzaddik do? They immediately blame others. They're not so guilty. When both me and the other person is guilty, hashpia aleha, bad influence upon. That person made me do it. I can't control myself. If the person would only not do that, then I wouldn't do it. So I'm not completely guilty, but I'm not completely innocent, but I'm not completely guilty. That's a meshugan tzaddik. We have a lot of meshugan tzaddikim walking around in our midst. Well, what I'm doing is wrong, but I got the best excuse in the world, only 50% wrong. And in order if that person would stop, then I would stop. Meshuggah tzaddik. And therefore, what do? You kill the other person. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. You tell them how terrible they are. So you become a murderer. And that's how you think you're better. But you know what? The other person will come back to you and do the same thing with you. And that's how you murder each other. And oy vavoy, how often we see this nowadays, where everybody says, yes, I'm at fault, but you are too. And therefore, the simplest way to get rid of the problem is kill the other person. And that's why so many marriages end up in divorce, because they're busy trying to kill the other instead of trying to take, as they say, what's that guy been drinking? What's that guy been smoking? Now we say, what's that guy been stepping on? He's stepping on Meshuggah dust. It's better to be just Meshuggah, not even a tzaddik, because then at least you won't kill anybody. This is what the problem is. People start thinking and they start deciding, oh, yes, definitely, we're both at fault. So if I kill the other one, everything will be fine. But the true tzaddikim, shadaitim yisharim, their minds are straight. When they married, when from heaven, they give them the right thoughts of tshuva. They don't blame anybody else. Ella es atzmam, just themselves. And that's also what you got to pray for. When you're making the judgment, say Hashem, make sure that the only focus is on me. That the change is in me, in nobody else. And I will not force the other side into capitulating, but I will capitulate myself. Hey, remember they say like, be, I don't know if by me, my master is my sin. Elokai, my God, I'm embarrassed and ashamed to raise my head before you. I don't have a mouth to speak and a forehead to raise. But Mishpat, when we're doing real judgment, that's what we're involved with. You have to take responsibility for your actions and not to blame others. If every time you come to the moment of truth, we come to that moment where you know you got to change. So what's the easiest way out? It's you're getting to a certain point. You realize you're doing something wrong. Okay, you're allowed to blame others for what's happening. That's also okay. It makes you less guilty. But that's the problem. Yashi v'sason associates Yetzer. Now you're going to blame those that surround you or the Yetzer. Shahu v'raku Hashem. That only the other person and only the Yetzer is at fault. If that's how you feel, you'll never ever make changes. Yeah.
So how Adam got punished? If this is
Sorry?
Adam or Ishmael got punished.
That same reason. He did not accept responsibility. He said, it's my wife's fault.
Yeah, so
And the wife said it was the snake.
On the others, right?
And the wife said it was the snake's fault. So therefore, Hashem punished them for that.
Have hands.
Even though part of the judgment is to be the defense attorney, we said it's also important. Because part of that is the difficulty that the Yetzer fools you. So we got to be careful not to make us have the lowest self-esteem. But when you have to focus on the part where you are guilty, now it's time for you to make the change. Don't dodge the issue and say it's the Yetzer Hara and that he's the only one to blame. No, it's you. We don't care where the blame is. You are the only one who can make the change. The other one make it. We're not interested in the other one. Don't be a phony and say, well, it's not my fault. If they would only change it, that's not true. Because you know what? Even if they would change, you still got the problem. You want to know why? Because Hashem will bring you somebody else to make you feel that. I'm going to divorce this woman. I'm going to divorce this guy. I'll never have this problem again. You watch and see. The next relationship you have, the next person will be twice as hard in the same area. And you go around your whole life because Hashem's going to do it. Because why do you think you had such a spouse to begin with?
It's good for you.
To realize what kind of phony baloney you are. And you just need something to activate it. So now that you saw it, oh, I'm going to blame the person. If that person's out of my life, then I'll be better. Oh, really? What a fool. What a fool. Even if in your words there is some truth. Oh, even if it's a real truth. You still have to know you have a part to change. Even if you feel you're so far away from holiness, you're toa b'lev yamim, you're lost in the heart of the seas. You almost can't control yourself. Do not blame others. You have to ask mercy from Hashem that He should have mercy on him and save you. In other words, you're saying, I can't, the situation I'm in, I can't do it. And maybe it's even true. Yeah, you cannot change. So you still daven to Hashem to help you. Okay, we're going to have to stop it at that. So tomorrow, Mirz Hashem, will begin at the top of page Reish Mem Vav as we come to the end of this chapter, Mirz Hashem.